What's up, YouTubers? It's Andrea from Andrea René Abroad, where I talk about Peace Corps, travel, and working abroad. I am coming up on my final days here in Australia, where I've been working in Melbourne for a family with 3 young children as the au pair. I've been living with them, I've been working with them. It has been an incredible experience, and if you haven't watched the video already about kind of my whole experience as an au pair, I will link it up here. I highly recommend that you check it out. Now, I realize this video is coming out late. It is because I spent the weekend at 2 different amazing places. I'm going to be doing a video today, as you can tell from the title, on my tour of Phillip Island, where I saw many incredible things, including Australia's famous fairy penguins, which are the smallest species of penguins on planet Earth. So let's go ahead and jump into the video. This is actually the second time that I have done a tour with this particular company, which is called Fun Addicts, which is based here in Melbourne, Australia. I already did a tour with them to go to the Grampians, and then I also did this tour with them for Phillip Island. So our day actually started a little bit later. We were expected to be at the downtown meetup point at 11:45 a.m., so much later than some of their other tours began. It was a large charter bus, but we didn't fill it all up, so I was able to have a row to myself, which is always really nice because the drive was 3 hours to get to Phillip Island from Melbourne. Our first destination was Cape Woolamai. I believe I am pronouncing that correctly. And we were going to be doing a 1-hour hike here, but as it turned out, you know, it is December. December means storms. So we could hear the thunder rolling in as we began our walk, and then unfortunately it just ended up completely soaking us. I was totally fine. I was mainly just concerned about my camera and also disappointed that that meant that I wouldn't be able to get any cool photos for you guys of the particular walk that we did, or at least the part of the walk that was rainy. It ended up raining so badly, and at one point there was a clap of thunder right over our tour group, which was kind of scary. So at that point we turned around and went back to the bus. But while we were huddled under trees, and luckily I had my umbrella, I did see some wallaby, which was pretty cool. But you know, I was trying to keep my camera dry, so I was only able to get a photo of the wallaby with my iPhone, which I need to replace anyways. I was not as concerned about my iPhone getting wet as my DSLR getting wet. So we got back to the bus, and it was a little bit emotional, to be honest with you all, just because there were some people in the group that weren't, you know, as gung-ho as some other people in the group. They were really disappointed that they had gotten all soaking wet and thought that we should go back to Melbourne. But pretty much what the tour guide decided was, if the majority of people wanted to continue the tour, then that is what we would do. So that's what we ended up doing. We ended up completing the tour, which I was so glad about, because when's the next time I'm going to be in Australia? I have no idea. From there we continued to Cowstown, I believe that's how you pronounce it. There we were able to stop for dinner, I guess you could say. It was around 5 p.m. And then from there, after dinner, we went to the Newbies Center, which was just spectacular views. I was so impressed. I have never been to Scotland, but it made me think of what I imagine the Northern United Kingdom to look like. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, but this just totally reminded me of what I think Scotland looks like. So it was just absolutely beautiful. I feel like the greenery on Phillip Island is very distinct from the mainland of Victoria. I feel like I've heard that they get a lot more rain on Phillip Island, so I think that's why it's so much greener. After we were at the Newbies Center, we took a really scenic drive to the final destination, which was the Penguin Parade. And on this scenic drive, we saw a whole bunch more wallaby, which was really exciting. And then we made it to the Penguin Parade, which is an amazing place. I was talking to some people who were saying that their parents had gone when they were younger, and that it is so different now, today, from the way that their parents were describing it. So basically what the Penguin Parade is, as I said at the beginning of this video, Southern Australia has the smallest species of penguins in the world, which are called fairy penguins. I'm sure there's a much more technical name for them, but that's what people call them here, fairy penguins, because they're so little. And so there's one place on Phillip Island where every single night, all of the little fairy penguins penguins come out of the ocean at sunset, and then they climb up to the rocks to find their little nest. And apparently they use the same nest for almost their entire lives. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, if you're a scientist or whatever and you actually know a little bit more about these fairy penguins than I do. But it was so cool because they had a visitor center set up there. So it had like cafeteria, gift shops, cafes, a really hefty visitor center, bathrooms, lots of bathrooms. It clearly was one of those situations where a natural scenic destination became so popular that they had to put the amenities in to make sure that the habitat of the penguins was preserved. So what they did is all of the walkways at the penguin parade are elevated from the ground so that the penguins are still able to walk on the ground properly without being disrupted by the humans. Obviously they're going to be disrupted a little bit, but at least the humans are not walking on the same ground as them or like walking in the different paths that the penguins need to be walking on, so the humans are all elevated a little bit higher up. So I thought that was really nice. And then there's a proper sitting area for all of the humans to watch the penguins coming out of the ocean. Nobody is allowed to take any photos, video, nothing. You're not allowed to because they're concerned about people who leave their flash on and scare the penguins. So they're definitely very concerned about the well-being of the penguins there, which I really appreciated. So obviously I don't have any footage of the penguins themselves, but if you're curious, you can obviously look them up online. They're super cute. I'm so glad that I got to see that. And you know, it's almost summer solstice here in the Southern Hemisphere. So sunset wasn't until 8:30, which means the penguins didn't come out until 9:15 at night. And then we still had a 3-hour drive back to Melbourne. So I didn't get home until super late at night, but it was totally worth it. Again, if you're interested in doing a Phillip Island tour and seeing the penguin parade, I highly suggest that you check out Fun Addicts. This was my second tour with them, and I always feel really well taken care of, even despite the storm. I know some people felt differently, but you know, I recognize that nobody can control the weather, so I thought that was to be expected. But I've always had really good experience with this particular tour group, so I highly recommend it. I had an amazing time. So actually I'm gonna have 2 videos coming out this week since I did 2 different tours this weekend, so hopefully that will make up for the fact that this video is coming out a little bit late. If you haven't checked me out on Instagram, definitely do, because I took photos while I was on this trip, and I think that's about it. So I will see you all in a few days because I will be posting a second video.